There are many great aspects about ZenlessZoneZero, and one of them is the ability to use many different team combinations. But the two most popular compositions would revolve around an attacker being the main damage dealer for a crit based team, or a team based on triggering disorder with anomaly DPS characters. Now we have already received a fair share of limited attackers, since back in 1.0 the two limited character banners featured Yinlin and Jiyan, which are two amazing crit based DPS characters and were the best DPS characters in the game by far. Then came along everyone's favorite rat in 1.1 being Jiyan, which really transcended anomaly teams and I would argue is the best DPS character in the game currently due to her explosive burst DPS. But that is just her own individual value, and as for overall, crit based teams such as Jiyan and Yinlin's teams feel a lot more complete. However, with 1.2 and 1.3, we have two more anomaly DPS characters dropping, being Burnice and Yanagi, which are looking to significantly impact anomaly teams moving forward to make them feel a lot more complete. So with that, I'm going to be going over some traits from both Burnice and Yanagi that show their insane potential, what this means for crit based teams, and how much of an impact all of this really has on the meta. Just before we jump into it, as always, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more ZenlessZoneZero content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now as it stands, it is arguable whether crit based teams or anomaly teams are the best, since there are powerful characters for each composition which are able to clear all endgame content without much difficulty. However, since anomaly teams are increasingly getting better with each version, it means that players would find more success in clearing content much more easily with an anomaly team, as it is pretty standard for characters in Hoyoverse games to be better than the last. So with that, Burnice being the next anomaly DPS character dropping is looking to have a significant impact on anomaly teams, considering that she is going to be our first off-field anomaly DPS character, which is going to allow anomaly teams to feel a lot more easy to use and complete. With crit based teams, there are already optimal characters designed perfectly for their role, such as with Jiyan, Changli and Nicole. You have Jiyan as the main damage dealer, Changli is the dedicated stunner, and Nicole is the dedicated support. Whereas with anomaly teams, due to the lack of off-field anomaly characters, it leads to players running either just one anomaly DPS character on a team, or a team consisting of two anomaly DPS characters that do require their own field time to trigger their anomaly, which means for disorder being the core of anomaly teams not being triggered as efficiently. As in order to receive the most value from triggering disorder, you would want to aim to trigger both anomalies from two different characters as close to each other as possible to maximize the damage. So with Burnice, allowing you to build fire anomaly whilst using another DPS character like Jiyan is going to allow you to trigger both burn and assault as close to each other as possible so that you can obtain the most value from triggering disorder. So it's safe to say that Burnice is going to be an integral part to anomaly teams and will be for a while, meaning that Burnice is also going to transcend anomaly teams and so will hold a ton of value. So the ability of building up fire anomaly off field is definitely going to be Burnice's most valuable trait. However, tied with the fact that Burnice is capable of triggering an anomaly the quickest out of every other anomaly DPS character, which means when she is on field, she will take up hardly any field time, making Burnice an incredible sub-DPS character. Additionally, her flexibility when it comes to team building is going to be one of the best in the game, as of course she will synergize amazingly with any anomaly main DPS character that drops. But even with non-anomaly characters, she is going to be a valuable asset. So in regards to her overall value, Burnice really is an amazing character and is definitely going to impact anomaly teams and the meta. Now with Yanagi, which is dropping in 1.3 and as we already know is going to be an electric anomaly DPS character, initially I believed, and I'm sure quite a few others did too, that she would be an off-field DPS character just like Burnice, purely due to the Chaos Jazz set being the brand new disc drive set which is made for fire and electric off-field DPS characters. To be fair, it might still be the case since nothing is official and set in stone, but it has been rumored that Yanagi is going to be a main anomaly DPS character just like Jiyan. So with that alone, as I mentioned earlier that it is standard for characters to be better than the last in Hoyoverse games, means that Yanagi has potential to be even stronger than Jiyan, which is insane to think about considering how amazing amazing of a DPS character Jiyan already is. Now do take this with a pinch of salt, but another rumor I've come across is the fact that Yanagi is going to be capable of increasing the damage dealt from triggering disorder. Now if this is the case, then again with Yanagi, she is seriously going to transcend the Anomaly meta and will be insane alongside Burnice. Since Burnice is going to allow you to obtain the most value from triggering disorder, as you will trigger both anomalies very close to each other. So with Yanagi now increasing the damage dealt means that Yanagi and Burnice are going to be an incredible synergy. So with the ability to increase disorder damage alone, means that Yanagi will be an extremely powerful and valuable character for Anomaly teams. However, it does also mean Yanagi will have much less team flexibility than other Anomaly DPS characters, since she will want a sub DPS character capable of triggering their Anomaly very quick, which as of now only leads to Burnice. Also, with someone like Jiyan, she isn't going to be the best partner for Yanagi as they both want their own field time, and in comparison to Burnice, Jiyan definitely takes much longer to trigger Assault, which will ultimately reduce the value of Yanagi's disorder damage buff. Lastly, it is kind of a no-brainer, but Grace will be the worst Anomaly DPS character to be paired up with Yanagi, as you aren't going to be able to trigger disorder between them, meaning mono-electric teams with Yanagi will not be viable. So even though Yanagi is going to allow for the Anomaly meta to pretty much take over, it does come at the cost of less team flexibility, which is a strong point for Anomaly teams. But to be fair, in exchange for possibly the most damage you can deal in the game and for a more easy to use Anomaly team, there would need to be some requirements to access the team. Now as I've mentioned, Anomaly teams are increasingly becoming stronger, and with 2 insane Anomaly characters dropping soon, of course this means crit based teams wouldn't be capable of clearing content just as good as Anomaly teams. However, since crit based teams are still able to clear all endgame content, which is ultimately all that really matters, it means that they are still great and viable for players to use. With that being said, due to the power level between crit-based teams and Anomaly teams becoming much more significant, means that there will be a crit-based DPS character that will drop soon to either even the scales out or perhaps allow for crit teams to once again take over. So truthfully, it is just a constant cycle of crit-based characters and Anomaly characters having their own turn to take over the meta. Which, if you play HonkaiStarRail, you would be very familiar with this sort of situation. So ultimately, meta is always going to be changing, but as of now, since endgame is extremely easy, it really isn't that concerning. However, Anomaly teams are going to be the strongest with the release of Burnice and Yanagi, as they will impact how fluid Anomaly teams will be and allow for them to be easier to use. Again, that is until it's time for crit-based comps to take over, and from the looks of it, Miyabi might be the character to take over the meta in 1.4, as there is a ton of hype surrounding her, and if she does remain to be an ice type attacker just like in the CBT, she is most likely going to be the best attacker and DPS in the game on release. Now with everything considered, due to the fact that endgame, which is the most difficult content the game has to offer, is easily beaten using many different team comps, means that meta should not really be of any concern to players. Of course, with the fact that characters are becoming a lot more stronger, it might just mean new endgame content will soon release, and it would definitely make sense, since there really is no point in characters becoming even stronger when the difficulty of content remains to be the same. But as of now, there is no confirmation or rumors about new endgame content being released, which ultimately means you are able to use literally any team you want. Overall, Burnice and Yanagi are going to be extremely powerful characters that will synergize very well together. So it is a bit of a shame they are releasing back to back, as there is a lot of pressure on having to pick up both in a short amount of time. Again, even though they are going to impact the meta significantly, it doesn't mean they are going to be must pulls, since endgame is pretty easy to clear. So as of now, you are better off aiming for characters you like and would like to play with. But of course, it's clear to see the insane potential of Anomaly teams and the massive upgrade they will be receiving shortly. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more ZenlessZoneZero content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also, drop a comment down below on your thoughts on the meta. Do you believe it will get to a point where there will be must-have characters to clear endgame content? Or will it just remain as casual as it is right now? And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.